the Congress has been sworn in. We have another controversy that's going on, actually two of them at the same time. Obviously, the question is that everybody's been sending me emails on also is, should Burris be seated or not? If you don't know what I'm talking about, we're talking about the seat that Barack Obama has left. Governor Blagojevich, I think, has picked Mr. Burris, which actually he does have credentials. I mean, in terms of his experience, he's a 71-year-old former attorney general. What do you think about that particular situation? Do you think he should be seated? Do you think that we should wait till the process is finished, the investigation? Can Illinois afford to have only one senator and wait?
Well, I feel that, well, first of all, when Blagojevich was caught making those statements on the tape, I thought he was tainted. He made dishonorable statements. He disrespected the executive office of the Illinois state governor. And I really thought he was tainted. And at that point, I made up in my mind that anybody we appointed shouldn't be appointed. And
what about innocent until proven guilty?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you have a thing. You have legal standards, but then you also have moral standards.
Right.
And just because he had the right doesn't mean it was the right thing to do.
So he can be low class as long as he didn't break any law.
Well, I just think that we have to have a lot of I have a lot of respect for the integrity of the executive office.
Well, what about Marion Barry?
Oh, well, no, that doesn't make it right either. We have to hold ourselves up to a higher moral standard. Marion Barry shouldn't be smoking crack in a hotel room, you know. But I think again, Burris is a very qualified person. He's a qualified individual. But again, Blagojevich asked another individual to seat the office, and he declined. But you know what? I don't think, at the end of the day, this is not a huge issue. I don't think it's going to last a very long time. If I were Burris, I would decline to be appointed by someone who was tainted as that, to have such as that. But you know what? If he decides to accept it, I disagree with him. He has a legal right.
Well, maybe they should let him sit in the seat until they resolve the issue, and then he can be replaced by somebody else. But the business of the country needs to go on.
Yeah,
and so to leave the seat open, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Not at all. And I think that's where the end problem is. And I think now they're working at a compromise where they're going to allow him to still be seated. You know, the real issue is this: the federal government, they arrested the governor, but they did not bring any charges against him. Formal charges at this point, I think, are still pending. And so that's where the real issue is, and he's acting within the law to do so. Now, should he have made the appointment? Probably not. Is Roland Burris qualified? Yes, he is, and then some. Probably qualified more than some of the others that are actually there. He's been a part of state government for so many years there and has done an exceptional job. And then again, we have the issue that there is no other African American in the Senate. So then you're dealing with this whole dynamic that I think the governor played on when he made the appointment. I don't know who the other person was that he approached, and I know a lot of people wanted to see Jesse Jackson Jr. in that seat. He was, and I think really they didn't really want him in it, but I know a lot of people wanted him in the African American community to be a part of that.
I mean, well, let's talk about that for a second. Let me ask the question, because that's part of some of the dynamic that's going on in New York also with Hillary Clinton's seat. It's good to appoint somebody, but can they be reelected is the question.
And Burris can't.
No. Burris can't? Do you think Jesse Jackson Jr. can?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You think so?
I think Jesse Jackson Jr. is extremely electable. You know, he's been a very successful congressman. I think he's very, very popular. I think that he has the public community on his side. I think he's done a great job of not really being closely affiliated with his father. So, Jesse Jackson, having that name, carries a lot of responsibility and burden, however you want to look at it. But I do feel that Jesse Jackson Jr. was entirely electable, and it was a sad, sad thing for him to have to be Senator candidate number 5 and to be mentioned on those tapes and essentially be excluded and
what
limited
about Valerie
to the
Jarrett, though? What about Valerie Jarrett? Wasn't it one of Barack's people he wanted to appoint Ms. Jarrett?
She's very comfortable in the cabinet of Barack
Yeah, but that's
Obama
not where they originally wanted to see, because remember the Ron Emanuel initial questions with Blagojevich was about her taking the seat. So I was wondering, would they even go back to revisit that? Maybe she might be the person.
Perhaps they will. I think the issue now is how are they going to proceed? And I think within the next couple of days there is going to be some kind of compromise where he'll be seated, but he cannot run after that. And then you're going to see probably Jesse Jackson Jr. run for that seat. I helped get him elected to Congress when he first ran for his congressional seat while I was living in Chicago. Bright, exceptionally well-versed. I think he would be an excellent senator. But there are a lot of forces that, because of his connection, of course, that's his father, Jesse Jackson Sr., a lot of people don't want to see him in that seat. But I do think there are some other qualified people out there that can take that seat and be successful, and they may revisit that at some point.
Now, the other thing that I think is interesting is the Coleman situation in Minnesota. We had this particular recount, which was done, quote unquote, by the Democratic-leaning committee, and now this particular situation is going to be going to court with a Republican-leaning judge to decide it. So I think it's very interesting. And again, are we looking at what's best for the country, what's best for individuals? The people's business is waiting because Barack has this stimulus package is waiting, and he wants to get this off the ground as soon as he starts. Can we afford to have allies who we need in the Senate to help him get it passed?
I mean, I think a lot of this, at the end of the day, it really is media overplaying a lot of these what's going on. Burris is going to be seated. If I were him, I wouldn't have done it, but he's going to be seated. I'll support him. Franken is going to be seated. I think the Republican judge is going to go through, because it's not a whole lot. They went through the very lengthy recount process,
right?
Which, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, we're like in the Flintstone area in terms of our voting system. With computers, we are living in 2009. Not '09. So this is. I really do think we have to up the game a little bit in terms of you can use computers and somehow, but I just think it's a little bit overplay on the media at this point. I do think that Franken won fair and square by a narrow margin, and he's going to be
225 votes. They said.